We're not on the air yet. And now we are on the air.
Hi. Welcome to Faces of Stone, the Star Wars edition.
Wow.
Da, 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 da. Let's hear it. There we go. That's what you're putting up with tonight. Tonight we're talking about Revenge of the Sith. I'm Amanda Sisk, and I'm here with two excellent men, Marc-Anthony Macon and Noah Diamond. I am very ill-prepared this week, did not have time to come up with some sort of witty introductions for them. So instead, I'm going to ask them to introduce me. So why don't you go ahead and introduce me?
Amanda Sisk is a 5'8" Jewish male who's wearing a burgundy t-shirt this evening.
Amanda Sisk also is the goose that hit Fabio in the face on that roller coaster. Little known fact.
And that set piece that collapsed on Bret Michaels' head during the Tony Awards.
All of these were Sisk, and very few people know this.
Her fingerprints are all over history.
So here we are. Thank you for joining us. So, as we know, this is the last film of the prequel.
Yeah.
And I have to say that, what?
No, please.
What were you going to say?
Well, I've been thinking all this time. We're talking about episode 3. We're going to be done with the Star Wars prequels. And then I realized, aren't Solo and Rogue One also Star Wars prequels?
That's true. I was just thinking that today, too, that while we don't tend to count them among the prequels because they're not the George Lucas prequels, I guess, they do come before the main story. So they pre its quell.
They are pre.
Mm-hmm.
They're not part of they're Star Wars.
They're not post-schools. They're prequels.
Right.
Post-schools. I always thought that was they should think of another term for a movie that comes after the main story.
Right. I think
post-school is just awkward to say.
I
don't know who.
Anyway. Okay, so we're in the last one of these 3. And I have to say, this is, I think like most people, this is my favorite one. I enjoy it a lot, actually. I like it. I think the further away I've gotten from seeing it the first time, the more I've liked it. And this time around, I've really kind of actively enjoyed it. So how do you guys feel about this compared to the other 2 of these 3 prequels? No,
I'm with you. I agree. I think episode 3 is both pretty damn good on its own terms and also the best of the prequel trilogy. I think, it's surprising how good it is in the context of the prequels, because we're used to, even though we love the prequels, we're used to apologizing for them a little bit. Episode 3 is pretty damn solid. I mean, it has some of the problems that characterize the prequels in general, but a lot of those problems are muted in episode 3, and it's quite strong. I think a lot of people who hated the prequels and never bothered to revisit them, if they just took a look at episode 3 right now, they would be blown away by how good it is and how it's kind of what, I don't know, maybe it's in some sense what we always thought the prequels would be like before we ever saw them.
I think it sucks.
Do you?
No, I don't. No, I generally like it too. I mean, I think, one of the things I was thinking about leading up to watching it a few times in preparation for this and just kind of, discussing it is, before this came out, so much that was in it was already kind of in the Star Wars geek mythos. Like we already had a lot of ideas of what we thought would happen or could happen. And I remember, when I was watching the lava fight scene, thinking about how we had thirsted for that scene for decades. And I think the first mention of it ever was in the Return of the Jedi novelization, that we got our first hint that there was a climactic battle of Kenobi and Vader on a lava planet.
I have a question about that lava planet.
Yeah, Mustafar.
Mustafar. I was going to save this until I got to we got to it, but I'll ask it now. Exactly what industry? In what industry are these people?
There's the lava harvesting. They're harvesting lava. Yeah.
One of the great moments in that sequence is when they're in the thick of the duel and they're just whacking away at each other, and then a little droid kind of pops up for a moment as though to perform some practical service, and then it kind of looks around and vanishes.
Oh shit, climactic battle, I'm out of here.
Yeah. It's like an extra who gets caught and they just don't know where to go.
That's typical, actually, of episode 3 in a very positive way. I besides the fact that in episode 3, the drama of the story just naturally becomes as gripping as it will ever be. It's also, I think, George Lucas's most assured directorial work in the prequels. Here, he's really in command of digital storytelling, and we never feel, as we do sometimes in episodes 1 and 2, that we're watching a kind of demo reel of all the stuff he can do now. It all flows very nicely from the story, and it's visually just absolutely stunning. And all those little digital touches are great. There's no droid factory sequence where we're just trying to get through it while George plays with his toys.
Well, I did feel like the Mustafar lightsaber battle got to a point where even for me it was a little too far.
Really?
I mean, I love it, and there are things about it that are fantastic, but when it's kind of like now we're swinging past each other on little floaty robots with shields over the lava, I kind of had to take a step back and say, I'm 45 years old.
We shouldn't have to do this.
Yeah, but it's.
I don't know. I liked it. Because I like these planets that are extremes. I realized, I like the.
Right. Well, like, in speaking to that, just as a total tangent, I was, watching this, I was reminded, I think this is really maybe the best example, but really a lot of the prequels, like, have some amazing world design that's really just beautiful and intricate, and I think we see the best of it in this installment. Like, all of the different planets that we see, and there are quite a few of them in this one, each have a unique design that's really beautiful and has its own kind of aesthetic to it. I like it.
And it's also I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Camino and Mustafar might be two of my favorites of the whole thing, because they're so,
Right, yeah.
I like would have my winter home on Mustafar.
Right, and then you'll summer in Camino.
No, I'll summer in Hoth.
Oh, you'll summer in Hoth, okay.
Of course.
Right.
School year in Camino, we don't want to pull the kids. Anyway, what were you going to say, Diamond?
They have accelerated learning there.
Yes.
I think, although it is the greatest visual mastery in the prequels, it's also the only one of the prequels that I think the story itself is sufficient to, get your attention, even without all the visual thrills that it offers. At this point, this kind of is the story we always were expecting. It's about how Anakin turns to the dark side. That really is the story we waited all our lives, to hear. And it is just inherently dramatic. And it's not just Anakin's turn to the dark side, but the whole playing out of Palpatine's plan. The whole Order 66 sequence is heartbreaking, like the way some sequences in great, earthbound war movies can sometimes be, heartrending.
True.
Loved it.
So also I wanted to mention to anyone, if you all have things to say or your favorite planets to tell us about, write in the comments. I'm not watching them, but I know that one of us egotistic people are.
We are. I'm watching them.
All right.
And they are not there yet, so chime in.
All right. Well, don't be shy, person.
Right.
So one thing that I noticed as we started this, first of all, war. Great headline, and it's the headline of Pearl Harbor, but isn't it the first? I don't know. I thought if anybody would know this, it was Marc-Anthony. I thought there was something interesting about it being the first one word, something, or first exclamation point or something. I can't remember.
I mean, I guess it is the first the time that that was done, just one word at the start of a scroll. But I also remember that I doubt it's a reference to this, but after episode 1 came out, and it ended with Boss Nass holding up a big, one of those orbs you touch at a hands-on museum when you're 8 years old. He's holding that above his head and going, "Peace!" And apparently Brian Blessed in interviews following that told everyone that the next movie was going to start with him going, "War!" Which, turned out not to be true, but maybe this was a nod to Brian Blessed's strange little ego.
It would have been interesting if it had been the first time ever and the last time ever in the crawl when Brian Blessed, or any actor for that matter, just says the first word.
Yes. It's just Andy Kaufman going, "And now it is war." Star Wars
There's one that goes, "There." Anyway, so we go in and we do pan down to a ship, which we're used to, unlike the last time. And we're not going to go through a play-by-play here, but one thing I did observe during this first battle scene where you realize, war, bam, we're in the middle of a war, is that they tell each other constantly what has happened. And I think this is because we're not supposed to be able to pay attention. There's so much shit going on. We're just supposed to be overwhelmed by this visual that they have to say things like, when the missiles go past them, Anakin has to point out they overshot us.
Yes.
Whereas, I'm pretty sure Obi-Wan Kenobi really already knew that. He was paying attention. He wanted to know where they were going. And they have to say those things all the time. So I think that's just for that. But then also that how much encouragement is given to R2 during this whole exercise, really. More encouragement than is given to any other human in this story is, "You did it, R2. Way to go, R2. Why?"
And this continues, Yeah, don't make fun of him. He's trying his best.
Yes, it's just
there's quite a lot of that going on.
they get a lot of that. So I feel like, first of all, they have to tell us this stuff in the battle sequences, which is really weird when you watch it as many times as I've watched it to get ready for this.
Yes, yes.
Go ahead.
No, I feel like the whole opening battle we have, which is just droid on droid on droid robot stuff, and then you go into the droid ship and there's more droid fight stuff. It really is like we are laying on the technology metaphor heavy right from the beginning. Here you go.
Yeah, that's true. And yet I noticed on one of these recent viewings, I think this movie must have the earliest lightsaber duel. 12 minutes into the movie, we've already got lightsaber action with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Count Dooku. And that's very soon for that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
The whole beginning of this is just like bam, bam, action, 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 which is why I do think they have to narrate it for you. It's too much to pay attention to. I think when you're talking about the technology in a literal sense of the storyline, I think buzz droids are so smart.
Yes.
And I don't understand why they don't just let those out and then let them take care of business most of the time.
Yeah, just make a bunch of those. Why do you need anything else?
Exactly. They're amazingly smart. I think they might be my favorite kind of droid now.
They are wonderful. And I can't even figure out what it is, but I feel like there is some sort of equivalent in our daily lives to buzz droids, but I'm not sure what they are.
Ants? I don't know.
No, because I feel like it's something that, attacks your vehicle or mode of transportation. And maybe it's more of a feeling than a droid. But it exists, and we know it. As soon as we saw them, we recognized them.
It's known as that ding, that dinging.
Yeah, that little ding that rips off your best friend's dome head and throws it off into space.
Beautiful.
One of those, yeah.
And then the last.
I love General Grievous. I just want to say.
Yes. Well, he's about to come in. The last thing I have to say about that battle is, when they're narrating it, my favorite line from that is when Ewan McGregor tells Anakin, "My cockpit's foggy." That's my favorite line, I think, from the whole battle.
Get a room, you two.
Mm.
So then enter General Grievous. Please tell us more, Marc-Anthony.
Well, I think that General Grievous is just a character that, if nothing else, we can recognize as a big example of a character that the fans were really accustomed to before he hit the big screen. So they'd seen him in all kinds of incarnations in comic books and cartoons and things, and had a very high opinion of him. And I think there were a lot of people that were really disappointed that he did not kick as much ass as they wanted in the Revenge of the Sith film. And also, I just think he's both hilarious and scary at the same time.
Yeah, he's just a scary bad guy, and a stop on the road to Darth Vader.
I mean, yeah, obviously he's another, like, there are a lot of little nods to, like all these components that kind of add up to Vader and some of the more minor villains, I think, and he's the one that is, I guess he's more Vader than Vader, really. Like, he's pretty much just a skull, a brain, and a spine stuck into a robot.
Yeah, and a heart, of course.
Heart and lungs. Little
right. Let's not forget that he does have a heart.
He does.
He feeds his dog.
It's funny that he has, he so much of him is this bionic, all-powerful structure that's obviously human-made, or that's obviously created, and yet, like, they couldn't just make him a decent pair of lungs. He's got to walk around coughing all the time.
He doesn't. He didn't want to be a droid. That's for damn sure. I went ahead and read the backstory of Grievous. I don't know Grievous. I came in not knowing it like the fans, and I loved him immediately. I think almost everybody did. He was awesome. But he did not want to be called a droid. He got really pissed off about that in the comic books or something.
Yeah, he's above all the droids. He's the, like, supreme commander of the droids, and also since he has an actual brain, he's protective of that, I guess.
Yeah.
But his species, hang on, I've got it written down here. The Kaleesh.
Yes.
Yeah. So they are apparently kind of bat-like. Their faces look somewhat like bats. But I've not even been able to find a picture of a Kaleesh without a mask on, because they all wear these kind of bone-like masks that look a lot like General Grievous.
Well, he was like Vader, basically blown apart, and then they pulled a little bit of him and stuck him in something, and there he is.
Right.
One of the things about the heart that I want to bring up as a continuing theme through here is I've been thinking a lot about, or struck by, Buddhism in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as it's everywhere. And Grievous, machine though he may be, and evil though he may be, and whatever, he still has, like, the great heart, and if you touch that great heart of sadness, he's destroyed. And it's a very Buddhist concept of holding the great heart of sadness. But of course, that also General Grievous's brain was messed with, apparently, too, to make him angrier and more raging.
Yes. Yeah.
He started, this whole downward spiral started because he lost his lady love.
As is often the case.
Right? So what's wrong with the men in this universe, or the male beings in this universe, that they just can't lose somebody and be okay with it?
Well, keep in mind that a lot of these are long distance relationships. I mean, we're talking about light years here. So that makes it harder already.
We live for the weekend.
Well, you have that, and then you have people losing limbs left and right. It's challenging to hold it together.
But I don't understand, okay, so Vader and Grievous, their whole thing happened because they lost their girlfriend or wife.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, it's ridiculous to say this, but you are simplifying it a bit, at least in Vader's case. It wasn't just that he lost his girlfriend or whatever, because that, as you've mentioned before, happens to all of us. We've all lost our girlfriend. But
he doesn't even lose her. He's just he's
just afraid to lose her. But I think that what this theoretically helps to draw him to the dark side and make him such a bad person because of this is that he thinks he has a chance to not make that happen. He thinks that there's a way he can stop it if he does things just right, and if he compromises who he is. I think that it's more that than just losing a loved one.
Diamond, you got anything to say?
Well, I mean, I think I agree with Marc-Anthony's point. It's a little more than just I was dumped and now I'm angry. But on the other hand, this is certainly a theme. To me, this is has more for me to do with a critique of the plot of the Star Wars prequels than Buddhism. But I don't know, maybe an attachment or two wouldn't be the end of the world. Doesn't the story of Anakin Skywalker, if nothing else, tell us that he might have been better off just living with an attachment than being so terrified to lose it that he would,
So what you're saying is that Padme is to Anakin what spindles were to Cinderella or to Sleeping Beauty.
Okay.
Is that basically it? That like you keep him from all these attachments, and then he's just going to go nuts with the attachments he gets.
Well, if Anakin had been able to marry Padme and live openly and have a wife, and
was that her first name, Mary?
Mary Padme, sister
Mary Padme Amidala.
It would not matter, because even if she was still going to die in childbirth, he would use his powers to join the dark side. Still, this is not about him being oppressed or some sort of celibacy. Oh, this is about he would have done the same thing whether his relationship with Malina out in the open or not. Even though secrets are no fun. Secret.
Well, you're always being told all the time, trust your feelings, use your feelings, reach out with your feelings. But your feelings, if they have to do with romantic or personal attachments, then you ignore your feelings. Do not reach out with your feelings. Whatever you do, don't think about your feelings. I don't know. Well,
in the special edition, though, they say reach out with your midichlorians. So it's not...
but you explore every feeling you have, and some you don't embrace, and some you do. And so they also, they try not to, there are other emotions that they don't embrace either as Jedi.
Yeah.
They just, this is very Buddhist, what you're critiquing. You're critiquing all of Buddhism.
Well, I'm just saying, it seems to me that if Anakin had just been free to walk into the Jedi Temple and say, hey, I met a girl, then, maybe they all could have been supportive, helped him pick out a nice outfit to wear on his first date.
But I don't think it would have changed what happened. Anakin still would have, gone to the dark side to save her.
Yeah, I think Sisk is right. I think that Palpatine still could have manipulated him into doing that. Yeah. If he could do it, with a calamari ballet, it was going to happen one way or another.
Right.
Have you ever been to a ballet? You'll turn to the dark side before the first act is over.
It's what they do to their feet.
Oh my goodness.
So we get to into the place where another observation I had, and I think that no one has had, is R2. So suddenly he's squirting out tar and setting people on fire, and he's got all these skills that really might have been useful later on.
Yeah, he's used them up.
Yeah, he's a much more adroit droid in the prequels.
Yeah, he only has so much oil. No one's refilled his oil in like 30 years by the time A New Hope comes around. He doesn't have. He would set so many people on fire if someone would just put a little more goddamn oil in his chassis.
Yeah, he does so many things.
But yeah, it's perfectly fair question, and I think that the kind of apologia answer is that by the time Luke has R2, he's not upgraded. He's been kind of neglected for so long that he's not able to do those sort of things.
Interesting. Though his there's like a nod to us fans when he says, R2, where are you? And the little goes up and looks around like on
Dagobah?
Yes.
Yes.
Dagobah, out of the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
So another question I had, an observation I had, you guys can jump in anytime here with other observations. I'm just going through, did the Jedi and other people who go to different systems a lot, do they get confused about the time changes, and how do they set their watches?
It's a good question. How many time zones are there on Coruscant?
Right, and how many hours to a day are there on Tatooine? I mean, there's already 2 sunsets, 2 sunrises. Like, how do these guys stay on? What's going on with their biological clocks and stuff? I mean, are they just...
Yeah, I mean, spaceship lag must be really a harsh thing, you would think.
Well, yeah. And we know they sleep because Anakin sleeps with Padme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, he does all the push-ups and then he falls asleep shirtless and
she falls asleep with a gown of pearls on, which must be the most comfortable. Because when I sleep, I want to sleep on top.
Time for bed. Let me strap on a chain of rocks.
Which leads us to Noah's favorite scene. When Anakin gets out of bed after having she's on the balcony brushing her hair. And he comes out to stare at her for a while. And this is the dialogue, word for word. You're so beautiful. That's only because I'm so in love. No, it's because I'm so in love with you. Your love has so much with you? That's not really what I meant. But it's probably true. Noah Diamond. Okay, what are we doing here?
I think it's just really sweet that Lucas let Ed Wood write one scene.
Oh!
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that that's the only bit of that we get. In episode 2, there's a lot of
we get quite a lot of that, yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like episode 3 is considerably better because there's only a brief interlude of that stuff. However, one of the few things that I think is worse in episode 3 than in 1 and 2 is the use of Padme. I don't mean Natalie Portman's performance, but Padme is not a very interesting character in episode 3. She's basically just pregnant and crying whenever we see her. Whereas in episodes 1 and 2, we've seen her being a politician and a soldier. Mm-hmm. We've seen her really, fighting and legislating.
She has some agency in 1 and 2, and in this one, she's just kind of there as a reactionary force and to be, used for procreation.
It's a little disappointing. I've read that there was a plot line that was cut from episode 3 because they were running out of time and they needed to make it about Anakin's turn to the dark side. But that originally Padme was supposed to found the Rebel Alliance in episode 3, and that would have been something.
That would have been nice. That would have been interesting if they could have. I don't see how you couldn't have made that happen without adding, more than 5-10 more minutes to the.
Among other things,
overall running time.
I agree. Or just trim a few of the fight scenes a little, but it was not to be. Another thing that was written and cut for episode 3 was there was going to be an appearance by a 10-year-old Han Solo.
Yeah, I remember reading about that, and I'm very happy that didn't happen.
Yeah, we didn't need that.
Yeah.
Well, what was it going to be? Do we know anything about it?
I think in How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, there's a quote. There's one line of dialogue. I think it was a young Han Solo just saying something about a droid. I think he was going to be somehow like a young soldier of the Republic. I don't think we needed that. There is plenty of that kind of fan service in episode 3, and a lot of it works very well. I love Yoda and the Wookiees. I love Yoda explaining that he has good relations with the Wookiees, which the mind.
That's a bit of TMI, honestly, Yoda. I didn't need to.
So now the time is.
Didn't need to know.
Good relations with the Wookiees, I have.
Yes.
Every night. And and
Chewbacca know it the Wookiees do. Like it the Wookiees do.
And Chewbacca himself is seen, plays an important role here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of these wild Star Wars coincidences, but I'm on board for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those coincidences that when you kind of follow it to its logical end is both ridiculous and also kind of makes sense that being... I guess we can assume that when Leia was sending R2 and 3PO to Kenobi, she also knew. And then they'll meet up with Chewbacca, who knows Yoda, and let's see. They will...
It's all so incestuous.
Yes.
It's like high school drama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yes, like Hayden Christensen, who would be the hot theater guy. Oh, anyway, so then now the time is. Yoda goes to see the Wookiees. They go to get Grievous, Kenobi, and Anakin. And Kenobi is elected by the council to lead, even though Palpatine has asked that Anakin
For
leads.
Anakin to do it, yeah.
And this is shortly after the council has asked that Anakin spy on Palpatine. So they're playing to both sides of him right now. And does the council not feel that this is good? I mean, this is not a good, it's not an honest thing. They're adding another layer of deception to Anakin. I think it's very unfair of them.
They're kind of dicks. The Jedi they're kind of dicks. Kind of dicks about it.
And it's kind of sucks.
Well, and also it seems like we're already worried about this person, and we're worried that that guy might be the most evil person in the world. Let's put them together.
Yeah. And
what could go wrong?
We're really worried about this guy, so let's make him lie.
Yeah.
And afraid of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I think there's no doubt that the hubris of the Jedi was kind of pounded into the ground, by the end of this movie. Like, they think they're great, and they think they're above everyone, and it's kind of their downfall.
I think it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I also think I guess it's one of the holes in the story that you just kind of go with and overlook. But it's a little outrageous that the Jedi are not onto Palpatine any more than they are. I mean, at this point, they are gradually waking up to the possibility that he may not be trustworthy. They should be ahead of themselves a little bit here. And in general, I think one of the interesting characteristics of the Jedi are intuitive, and they are perceptive on some kind of metaphysical level. But how smart are they, really? They're not that smart. Anakin himself, he has many gifts, but he's not sharp.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, instinct and making things float are not the same thing as having.
Does not an Einstein make?
Exactly. Well, I mean, they did say in episode 2, I think, that their ability to use the Force is diminished. The dark side is clouding everything. I mean, clearly Palpatine was supposed to be shrouding their vision in some way that they just couldn't.
Then, now Yoda can feel every damn thing that happens. Like, every time somebody ties his shoe, it cuts to Yoda going,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but that he was sensing the Jedi being killed at that, with things like that. Like, he could sense
everything that happens, though, he feels it.
Right.
Sometimes makes for a beautiful moment. Sometimes just like, yeah, why didn't you feel this before?
He was distracted.
The screenplays do, try to explain a little. In episode 2, Yoda says, blind we are if the creation of this clone army we did not see. I mean, they're always acknowledging that all this is happening and should be more detectable. But throughout the prequels, Palpatine just outmaneuvers the Jedi so consistently. We do have to ask, how effective are these Jedi anyway?
Suddenly Obi-Wan is roaring around on this huge animal, which Marc-Anthony is called a what?
That particular one is called a Baga. That's her name is Baga. And she's hang on, where did I have it here? Verdactyl?
Yes.
And she's a Veractyl.
Awesome, right?
Yeah, I love her.
I do too.
I love the sounds that she makes. I love the way that she moves. I love how she just jumps off of things and slams onto other things and just doesn't give a shit.
It's like parkour, kind of.
Yeah. She's a parkour lizard. But she also seems really chill, like you don't see her getting freaked out about all these things. She's just like, yeah, I'm running, you may stop. All right, I'm stopping. Oh, you whistle, here I come. You can land on me. All right, let's go. Yeah. We're jamming. Oh, we're chasing that big robot guy. Yeah.
She's game.
She's down for it.
Which makes her a very apt counterpart for Obi-Wan.
Right.
In episode 3 continues his career as the bravest and most daring and heroic character in the prequels. Don't argue with me. Obi-Wan in episode 3 takes down General Grievous and Anakin without breaking a sweat. He loses his cool only when he makes his grand Shakespearean speech at the end. You were the chosen one. Now he's angry, but that's emotional. Whereas Anakin is just so angry. He's all over the place. He's reckless. Much fear I sense in him. I love in the Obi-Wan Grievous fight the way when it really begins. Grievous is this robot man. He's 7 feet tall. He's got 4 lightsabers whizzing around him like helicopter blades. And Obi-Wan's just like, all right, I got, get it. He's totally calm. He's like, oh, okay, a sword fight. I think I'll win this one.
He's having more fun than he has any time in the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Like, he gets really like, okay, yeah, and he's like watching and doing this thing for the first time, which we've never seen him do.
Yeah, that's an interesting, weird, little stupid thing.
It's stupid, but you love it. You're like, yeah.
I think that may have found its origin in Clone Wars. I think the Clone Wars cartoon may have started this kind of, thing for Kenobi.
He's getting older and he needs help with his aim. This is kind of like bifocal.
It's like kind of squinting. Where is the
head is
4-armed robot? Not exactly a Jedi killing machine.
They're like bifocals for them.
One more note about General Grievous is his coughing was not a consistent trait in all of his appearances until right before this, and I forget exactly what happened, but there was a battle or something that happened where he was injured, and that led to him wheezing and coughing.
As kind of he rides around in. That shit's awesome. That wheel.
Oh, you mean that the little like wheelie?
Yes, and I
quadruped thing.
God, it's like it's like a wheel or something.
Yes.
That thing's awesome too. I would love to have that. The way it bounces around and it has legs that come out sometimes. Sometimes it's kind of crabby. There are a lot of crab-like droids and weapons in this one. It's gotten progressively crab-like.
It's gotten crabbier and crabbier as it's gone on. It's very crabby.
He rolls around with it as well. I think that makes for a great chase scene. Is this loping animal and that wheel thing.
Tons of fun.
One of my favorite chase scenes, I think, in the whole thing. So we're back with Anakin, who is feeling paranoid. He's feeling like the council isn't including him. They're not telling me things. I know that. He's confiding in Palpatine. You're seeing both sides of him. At this point, I think on the lighting and the direction and the photography, like every time you see him, basically, he's in dark and light. I mean, they're putting quite a fine point.
It's not subtle at all.
No.
Which is part of what's really good about it. Star Wars is at its best is not subtle, and Episode 3 is full of bold moves like that. I think Hayden Christensen's performance is so much better here than in Episode 2 because he's better at playing this dark rage that Anakin is in for most of this movie than the more playful, juvenile, sort of swashbuckling role he had in Episode 2.
Somewhat mopier rage.
Mopey. And
it's not fair. I'm somewhat angry.
I'm angry. Yeah.
He has some real powerful, acting moments in this film, and the closer he gets to and past the dark side, the more convincing his performance is. And Ian McDiarmid, my goodness, Ian McDiarmid is really the MVP of the.
Agreed.
His scenery chewing performance in Episode 3, especially, is just. It's magnificent. And he understands maybe better than anybody the correct melodramatic tone for this material.
He hits just the right notes with that. And I especially think there are a lot of scenes in this film where his makeup is so over the top that it almost doesn't work, but the way that he lands his lines makes it work perfectly. Just his fight with Mace Windu and is... I can't hold it any longer. And it's just this like beautifully fake yet kind of understandable whimpering. I love him. I love what he's saying.
The force bolts when he's killing Mace Windu, he screams unlimited power and sells it like it's a Broadway song. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah,
and that sequence. When I was, 6 and saw Return of the Jedi in the theater, I remember so clearly being terrified during the whole climactic scene with Palpatine and Vader and Luke, where Luke is hiding and they're looking for him. And I was so scared. I wanted to get out of the theater, but I also didn't want it to end. And when episode 3, when I saw that for the first time, I had that exact same feeling during the Mace Windu Anakin Palpatine scene, which very clearly and deliberately rhymes with that scene in Jedi. Anakin trying to figure out if he should help the good guy or the bad guy, and looking back and forth between them. And when Palpatine does that, no,
yes, it's so great.
It's really like breathtaking.
I mean, did he swallow an actual frog to be able to do that? His voice does this bizarre croaking thing that is, it's phenomenal.
Would it have been better had he not been playing against Samuel L. Jackson, who really can't take it to that level, or was it better because Samuel L. Jackson could not take it to that level?
I feel like Samuel as Mace works really well because he never quite gets totally flustered. He just has this kind of cool as a cucumber, even when everything is at stake.
Yeah,
demeanor.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded if Mace Windu had been given more to do in the prequels in general, but I don't find much fault in the performance.
There was one bit in this battle with Palpatine where it was a really strange angle that they shot him from, and it made Mace Windu look it was unflattering. But I love Samuel Jackson as Windu, and I tell you, I see absolutely no excuse for that character being dead. We could easily, have another little side story movie starring Sammy J as Mace.
And yet another character who has lost his arm.
Another arm gone.
Talk about Grievous lost 2 arms.
Yep.
Well, that's why the original working title for episode 4 was A Farewell to Arms.
I'm not continuing with this. I want it to be no part of this. If this is the way we're going to play it. All right. So, and Grievous also. So let's go ahead and talk about the death. We're not going in order here. So I think it's a pretty good fight scene. Like you said, he's got those swords and everything. So do we want to say anything else about, actually we did cover his fight scene, but is there anything else we want to talk about Obi-Wan and Grievous before we?
Well, I mean, there is the little, I think maybe a little too on the nose reference to A New Hope when Kenobi shoots him and then throws away the blaster and says, "So uncivilized." It's it's not terrible, but it's a little it's a little too there.
A more civilized weapon.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Thank you. Yeah, another moment in. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Well, another moment in episode 3 that is a fairly shameless reference to the original trilogy, but I love it, is the scene just before Padme and Obi-Wan, stowing away on her ship, go to Mustafar to confront Anakin. She has her scene with Obi-Wan in her room on Coruscant, and Obi-Wan says, Anakin is the father, isn't he? And, it's this, Obi-Wan is just casually stumbling upon the gigantic revelation from episode 5. The whole trilogy hinges on Anakin being the father, and he just tosses it off. It's a nice little moment.
So let's talk more. Oh, okay. Here's another bit of dialogue, very tiny bit of dialogue that I want to bring up, and it's Mace Windu and the Emperor, or Palpatine, and he says, "You're under arrest," and Palpatine says, "Are you threatening me?" No, actually, I said you're under arrest. It's not. Why? So, and then I think this is where it continues, and he says, "The Senate. I am the Senate. Not yet." I think that's the same thing. But you're under arrest? Are you threatening me? So I think that's a good line to use. Criminals. Any.
Yeah. Hang on. Where's my pen? I'm gonna write that one down.
As they start reading Miranda, just say, "Are you threatening me?"
Are you threatening me? And then if they don't respond well to that, then you say, "I am the Senate," right? That's
yeah.
Okay. Just checking. By the way, in that fight where they go to arrest him, I really love the build up to that. Like we're kind of confronting this Sith Lord, and we don't know what to expect. And from what I understand, they didn't have a lot of time to train Ian McDiarmid to do lightsaber battles. and there was some concern that, well, he's supposed to be the most powerful evil guy in the galaxy. How are we going to make this look right? But I really like the way that Palpatine fights in this scene. I think it looks like how I would kind of believe that character would fight in a way that works.
They do a lot of shooting around their legs, I think.
Yes.
Like you see a lot of capes waving and things. And there are a lot of different colors of sabers in there. So you can kind of lose who's this, who's the Emperor has purple, which, is, of course, the Emperor's color.
I thought it was red.
Yeah, his is red.
Oh, who's
Mace Windu's is purple.
Mace is purple.
And that's because Sam Jackson specifically said that he wanted that.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Because I never
when I don't know if it was at what level of the process in the Phantom Menace, and he was, I think, talking to Lucas and saying, "I want a purple lightsaber."
All right.
And as we know, Christopher Lee said, "I want a lightsaber that's kind of shaped like a banana."
So I have to say, this time, when Anakin turned to the dark side, the more and more he got to the dark side, and the further and further he got to the dark side, started not to mind him so much. And I started, in fact, to find him the way I think you're supposed to find him, which is kind of attractive. And I think it's because he just started groaning and moaning. And this is embarrassing to admit, but yes, I found Hayden Christensen to be a really hot little angsty young guy this time around. I think I'm just becoming, I'm old.
Mm-hmm.
But he, I really kind of liked him this time. And I would have to say that, in my opinion, and this is also an embarrassing opinion, that's just TMI, I think the most sexual chemistry in this entire series of 3 films is not ever between Padme and Anakin. It's between Anakin and Palpatine when Anakin is pledging his troth.
Yeah.
Wow, that is.
I mean, their whole relationship in this movie is very sexy.
Yes, it is.
They go to the opera together. They have this very intimate talk. They make everyone else leave so they can talk quietly alone while ballet dancers fly through the air into water and splash about.
And then he says, you're my master, and he's like, I'll do anything you ask, and he's like, good, Anakin.
Yeah, it's very sexy. It's very sexy.
Knowing you want to jump in this.
Not as much as you do, but I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
I think that there's always been a bit of that. I mean, I think in this case, because Hayden Christensen is more of a kind of sex symbol presence, we are more aware of it. But even in the original films, the way Jedi and Sith talk about their relationship with the Force does have this kind of sensual, tactile quality to it.
Well, they even say seduced by the dark side of the Force.
Yeah,
like
it's by the dark side.
Yeah.
In Return of the Jedi, I have felt him. There's good in him.
Right.
I feel it. I feel the good in him.
At that speed, we'll be able to pull out in time. It's all over. Come, good food, come. It's Sorry, I'm keeping it classy.
Yeah, that's undeniable. And yes, and in this case, Anakin is our first male ingenue with an edge.
Yes. And great luscious hair, especially in this installment. He's
and then that just continues with Kylo, of course.
Yes.
Luscious hair.
Luscious
hair.
Kylo keeps it very, very fluffy too. I mean, Anakin's hair by the end of this movie is very
scraggly and burnt.
Makes him hot.
A bit on the charred side.
Yeah.
So then we get to really what is the most heartbreaking part of this film.
I mean, oh wait, were you about to say what you think is the most?
Go ahead.
For me, it is the Order 66 and the Fall of the Jedi. I think it is, every one of them is beautifully shot. I like that if you've been watching the prequels, you at least recognize these Jedi that are dying. You may not know their names, but you've seen them probably before or have an idea of who they are. And I think for like the really into it fans who probably have a favorite Jedi that they've read every little bit of minutia about and followed their whole life through comic books and cartoons and whatever, seeing their favorite character eat it on the screen like that was probably a very specific kind of bittersweet torture. It's just beautifully shot, and I love it.
And as with all the great sequences, John Williams' music really
Oh my
makes
God.
that sequence. It's very effective, and yeah, that is a truly heartbreaking sequence. It's also one of those. It's one of those things we always kind of knew something like that happened. Like there's going to be this wiping out of the Jedi, and to see it play out fairly convincingly and heart-shatteringly is it's a key sequence for the whole saga.
Mm-hmm.
Another sequence in shortly before that that really is so impressive to me. It's after Anakin tells Mace Windu that Palpatine is a Sith Lord, and Windu goes off to confront Palpatine and tells Anakin to wait in the temple. And there's a scene. It's like 2 or 3 minutes long. It's mostly silent. It's just ambient sound, a little bit of distant music. And a kind of Anakin hears Palpatine's voice in his head a little bit, but it's mostly just Anakin and Padme in their separate
sitting,
yeah, staring out the window, and Anakin starts to cry. It's like that seems to be the moment when he, in his heart, turns to the dark side. Very subtle, very daringly executed, and touching, heartbreaking.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a wonderfully done scene.
It is. Those two young people, the people looking at each other in face. In 66, what gets me is it's very much like the betrayal that these people feel for an instant, and how confused they must have been, and they just didn't understand at all what was happening in that one split second before they died, and that's just a horrible thing. It's just like hurting an animal.
Yeah.
You understand? That's just it just kills me. Like kills me. Not that dying is easier if you understand why, but somehow it's
but it's just the out of nowhereness of it is really upsetting.
So hard.
And speaking of really upsetting, like again, like the clone troopers for many of the fans had become like family. They had kind of watched them, all these specific clone troopers, grow and do different things, and so Commander Cody was one of the favorites, and for him to be firing on Kenobi was something that was really hard for people to see. And let's talk about the Younglings scene, which we all kind of knew before the movie happened would have to at least be referenced. I mean, the fact that they introduced Younglings at all in the beginning, we're like, that's so when it did happen, yeesh.
That scene is horrible. That's another one of the they don't understand. And this time when I was watching it, the worst thought that I had was he's not going to be able to get them all at once. So there's going to be some that are standing there waiting, like, and not understanding, and that really hurt me.
When it cuts to Yoda's cane dropping, and it's sort of a heart-stopping moment, even though you're fully aware Yoda is going to survive into the next trilogy, and won't be killed by Order 66. When you're watching all those Jedi, the body count pile up, and then you get this sudden reminder that in with all those many characters we've sort of gotten to know only a little bit, there are also some characters we've loved all our lives who are implicated in Order 66.
And it reminds me, as I said earlier, Noah, of the end of, The Godfather, when Michael orchestrates all of the assassinations of the heads of the 5 families plus Carlo while he's at the baptism. And it's like these interspersed scenes of him at the baptism and everything, and then all these people dying in all these different places because he's just given the order. But it's very much reminded me of The Godfather. So that's the first time I can say that. But it does lead to one of the best, as Marc-Anthony and I believe, they'll spoil you here, the best decapitations in the entire prequel.
It's one of the best decapitations in any movie.
Tell us about it.
I mean, first of all, like as Noah just said, like no one was really tense and worried that Yoda was going to die in this scene. But since we had just seen so many other Jedi, like just barely, go what and then get shot down, and we can also assume that there are plenty of people that didn't grow up with the original ones that may be watching them in chronological order and have no idea that Yoda will survive this, and that tension could be there for them. But anyway, knowing that Yoda is in pain and still has the perspicacity to jump up, spin around, and decapitate 2 guards behind him, and just the look behind him as he kind of like senses them coming. This is also the way that it's framed is very Kurosawa samurai fight. Like it's unlike a lot of lightsaber fights we've seen that are really intricate and lots of bouncing and jumping around and things like that. A lot of the old samurai fights were really just, we stare at each other for a long time, we run at each other, there's one swing, and then we both stand there and one person falls over. So that was, Yoda was being pretty samurai with that. I liked it.
Yeah, and then he scampers up a Wookiee.
Aww.
Scampers up.
Scampers up a Wookiee, and they go away. And then, you know, they have the big fight in the Senate chambers. He fights Palpatine. Talk about heartbreaking again. So heartbreaking. And
I do think that prior to that fight, Yoda has perhaps his most awkward line in all of Star Wars. Can you guess what that is?
Not if anything to say about it. I have.
I have. Yes.
Yeah.
Frank Oz read that 6 or 7 times and wondered if it was worth fighting to get it changed.
It's tongue-in-cheek, don't you think? I mean, that's a very tongue-in-cheek moment.
Oh, God. Yeah, but, well, okay, sure. Sure it is. I do love his little, like, he walks in and there's 2 royal guards and he's just like, just, I'm not going to bother with you bitches. Just go.
Palpatine too, and he says, "I've been waiting for this moment, my little green." Like he's talking to Kermit.
Yes.
And yet there's something, the Palpatine versus Yoda duel, that kind of should be the ultimate confrontation between good people. But I think since in episode 2 we already got over the thrill of seeing Yoda fight at all, his duel with Count Dooku. And then also because the Yoda Palpatine duel in episode 3 is intercut with the Anakin Obi-Wan duel, the confrontation between Yoda and Palpatine feels like it's somewhat less than it should be.
I think that, you know, them trying to use the discs was just, they tried so hard. You know, they had this thing set up, why don't we use it? And it really wasn't very compelling.
You mean the Senate pods?
The Senate pods, yeah. I feel like it works thematically. Like, I kind of like the idea that the government is crumbling and being ripped apart. And, you know, like, that works. But as a scene for a fight, it is a little confusing and awkward. And I think, like you say, Amanda, they try a bit too hard. The kind of like, and now I'm going to spin this because somehow that will make it worse for you, Palpatine.
It's like if Mitch McConnell started throwing desks at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
but spinning it first. Yeah. He's not just throwing a desk. It's just, first let's get this thing going, and then I'm gonna just fling it at you.
Yeah, it's just doing
on one finger, the desk finger. Yeah.
And then he falls down, and his cape's off, and he's just wearing that little brown romper, and it's so sad.
It is very, you know, mendicant kind of sadness. Also, there's like 3 seconds there where I actually look away from a Star Wars movie almost every time I watch it, and that's when Yoda's falling and he digs his nails into the metal. Oh. I can't watch that.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah.
Wait, because you're sad or because of the metal?
Because of the metal, because it's it just makes my own fingernails and weirdly teeth hurt to see that happen. Yeah.
So he gets in the little ship and he says, "Into exile, I must go. Failed I have."
Sounds about right.
Which, you know, brings to mind the Dalai Lama, of course, and that Kunu was the compassionate Dalai Lama. And Yoda seems to be so compassionate as well, even though he doesn't have attachment. He has compassion. He feels everything, and then he has to go into exile. So it's just another little parallel. Also, everyone says Yoda was based on a certain Buddhist monk, something Rinpoche. I can't remember the story, but
I've not heard that.
He looks a lot like him, and George Lucas knew him.
But he's also looks like Einstein. A lot of his face was based on Einstein.
Oh, I've heard, yeah.
But I mean, let's keep in mind though that this version of the Dalai Lama, after spending a few years in the swamp, will tell Luke Skywalker, "Just kill your dad. Just kill your dad, and everything will be fine."
How do you know the Dalai Lama hasn't said that to
Maybe the Dalai Lama has.
Well, Yoda is giving Obi-Wan the same advice that Obi-Wan will give Luke in the original trilogy. Obi-Wan tells Yoda, "I can't kill Anakin. He's like my brother." And in Return of the Jedi, Luke tells Obi-Wan, "I can't kill my own father." And Obi-Wan says, "Well, then the Emperor has already won." So this is another rhyming motif. You have to kill this person. You have to kill him.
Well, and I think that this is where some of the newer installments have kind of addressed things that a lot of viewers just didn't really want to pick up on, that this isn't black and white. And in fact, Luke disobeying that specific order was the right thing to do, and what ultimately led to the freedom in the galaxy. So the Jedi way was really fucked up, and Luke was like, "I'm not gonna do that."
And maybe it's because of the number of years in hiding as well. It kind of corrupted things, and it was kind of a desperation move. But yeah,
no, I think that was how they felt the whole time. They really felt that once you were a Sith, you have to be killed. That's the only. I mean, the same thing with Mace Windu is that Anakin was like, "It's not the Jedi way. You can't just execute him without a trial." And Windu was like, "No, I'm gonna kill him."
Well, how can they justify that when only a Sith deals in absolutes?
Exactly.
And episode 3 practically begins with Palpatine telling Anakin that he has to kill Dooku because he's too dangerous to keep him alive. And Anakin saying it's not the Jedi way. And Palpatine says, "Do it." Yes. That's another one of these little clues that this guy might be evil. Because
subtle, but there.
Yeah, if you watch for it.
If you know where to look, you can figure it out.
So that does lead to the Dooku killing is one of the times where, as you point out, Noah, there's so many times where Anakin's kind of turning to the dark side, and you can see it, and that's one of the decisions he makes to slice another decapitation, slice his head off. But so, we move forward, and let's get to when Padme is told about what's happened, and she goes to see him, Mustafar, and Obi-Wan follows. So she, of course, doesn't believe it's happening. She feels like she can go and save him. And yes, she mirrors everything else. There is good in him. I can feel it. And she maintains that up until the end. But she sees Hayden Christensen. She used his name, Hans Christian Andersen.
I'm Hans Christian Andersen. I have a tale to tell.
So she sees him, and he's basically gone. He's over the edge. He's He's looking pretty hot with all the sweat and the dirt and the scar and the hair.
That scar! Oh!
Right.
Oh, shit cakes.
So he's really upset with her, and then he sees Obi-Wan. Which, as she did not know he was on the ship, correct?
I assume not, yeah. Much like the alien in every sequel, he's stowed aboard.
Yes. And then he basically tries to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when you can say just about the last of his humanity is being drained out of his body at that point.
Yeah, although you're very correct about how there are many events that you could say, well, that's the point of no return. I mean, even in episode 2, there's a couple moments like that, like with the Sand People. But by this time, he's killed younglings, he's killed all these Jedi. Padme, believing to her final breath that there is still good in Anakin, is kind of, she passes that feeling on to their son, Luke, who spends the whole of episodes 4 through 6 coming to this realization that there is still good in Darth Vader. But, it's interesting how at the end of Return of the Jedi, we're supposed to sort of applaud that Vader is redeemed by his son. But if Vader didn't die at the end of that movie, I don't think it would be like, he's a good guy now.
He's forgiven.
He's
no sweat, Darth.
Yeah, he's destroyed entire planets.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he have to stand trial in some way?
But I think that's in all of these modern all fables like that. That's the honorable thing to do. Is yes, go stand trial, or in some Roman days, maybe go kill yourself. Things like that. There's always
Poke your eyes out.
a sacrifice, that you have to make.
Yeah.
Speaking of sacrifice, so we're going to sacrifice Anakin here. Obi-Wan is going to. They have this amazing fight on Mustafar, and he says, "Don't do it, Anakin. I've got the higher ground."
I've got the high ground.
Many, many, many levels, of course.
So many levels there.
So many levels. And then Anakin says, "I have more power than you do." Jumps up. The only time I think I know of in all of the movies when someone's legs are chopped off. Am I correct, Mark?
Yeah, as far as there are some other leg injuries I think of.
Maul. I mean, Darth Maul gets cut in half.
Yeah. It's not his leg specifically. He's severed in two. But well, it doesn't Saw Gerrera have robotic legs, and we don't see them get cut off, but he has.
Right. It's true, but we don't see him get cut off. Arms and heads get cut off.
No, well, but then also to be fair, I've never watched that bit in slow motion, but every time I watch it, I want to, and I just don't go back for some reason. But I don't quite get how Kenobi's lightsaber swing managed to be and all three of these limbs are gone.
Do you this is the first time you're wondering about a lightsaber battle and how things could possibly...
No, I know. You wonder quite a lot. But with that one specifically, I feel like Anakin jumps up, Kenobi kind of waves his lightsaber, and Anakin comes to the ground missing three limbs that were in the air at some point.
Well, Kenobi jumps up too. I mean, the hit happens in midair.
It just seems like I would like to see a little more detail in terms of how that...
He lost another arm, or he lost the already lost arm?
No, he lost another arm.
Jeez.
So the only arm he had left was the robot arm, and he's dragging himself up on the,
And then his legs, of course, catch on fire, which are just awful.
It's and
then, of course, is one of the worst heart-rending moments, which Noah, I'll let you talk about, as it's one of your moving moments.
Obi-Wan's speech.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this too, along with the confrontation between Palpatine and Mace Windu and Anakin, these final moments of Anakin on the banks of this river of lava, on first viewing and pretty much every viewing, this really does. This is very powerful, affecting, kind of tragic, high tragedy stuff. Obi-Wan, when Obi-Wan is assuming at this point that he's won this confrontation, then he finally loses his cool for the first time, and he has this tearful shouting monologue that begins, "You were the chosen one, you were supposed to bring balance to the Force, not leave it in chaos. You are my brother, I loved you." It's a very powerful. This partly it's because Ewan McGregor is consistently one of the acting strengths. He can handle this material and sell it, but I find this extremely powerful. I think it's partly because of its actual properties, and it's partly because it resonates so strongly with the original movies.
Well, and especially when Anakin yells, "I hate you! Give my lightsaber to my son when he's old enough!"
Yeah. They do have that great little insert shot of when Obi-Wan walks away.
He grabs the lightsaber.
He picks up the lightsaber. I mean, Obi-Wan doesn't think Anakin, he's ever going to, hear from Anakin again after this. You do kind of think it's another one of these times when if you had just gone back and just done a little extra lightsaber work.
It's just, doesn't he feel like a schmuck later?
There never would have been a Darth Vader if you had.
I just love Kenobi's mentality, though, that is, I won't kill you, but I'll cut off all your limbs and leave you aflame next to a lake of lava.
But it would hurt me too much to kill you.
I don't want to do something that bad.
So
it's a testament to the power of the story that even with all we've been through and all the defects of episodes 1 and 2, when Anakin is there burning alive and screaming, "I hate you," and trying to pull himself up, you can't not think about that little boy we met in episode 1 and how badly things have gone for him.
I mean, when that burning scene is happening, I immediately do think, yippee! Or was it whoopee? This is so wizard.
It's the wizard, Amy.
So wait, I just want to add to this. Like I said, this whole confrontation was kind of big in the consciousness of Star Wars fans for a long time before it was ever filmed, and people had grand ideas of what it was supposed to be, and a lot of it was based on this one passage in the Return of the Jedi novelization. So I just wanted to read that to you, because it's in some ways, very accurate to what happened. In other ways, it's not quite what panned out to be the case. So this is Kenobi talking. You should not think of that machine as your father. When I saw what had become of him, I tried to dissuade him to draw him back from the dark side. We fought. Your father fell into a molten pit. When your father clawed his way out of the fiery pool, the change had been burned into him forever. He was Darth Vader without a trace of Anakin Skywalker. Irredeemably dark, scarred, kept alive by machinery and his own black will.
Wow.
So Anakin didn't fall into a molten pit.
Yeah, but poetic license, blah blah blah.
Yeah. And I think we could also argue that he was Vader before that fight happened.
I don't know. Maybe it did symbolically burn the last bit of Anakin out of him. Because
it was just in the epidermis, and we needed to get rid of it.
Just purged by fire.
Yeah.
So, of course, he is saved. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Noah Diamond.
I was going to say that passage from the Jedi novelization matches what happens in Episode 3 better than some of what is said in Episode 4.
Yeah.
About the Obi-Wan in Episode 4.
It's been a long time.
Well, and also I think that we could argue that Obi-Wan is just lying to prevent Luke from making some of the same mistakes that his father made.
Secrets are no fun.
They
hurt someone.
Or how about Leia in Episode 6 having memories of her mother? That was only like 30 seconds immediately following her birth.
15, and she's Leia, and then died.
Well, it's actually that Bail Organa's wife died when Leia was very young too, and she conflates them.
Okay.
Okay. So they're born actually. So let's look at this too. So
okay.
Picks up.
So first of all, babies.
The Emperor picks up. Yes, we're gonna get there. The Emperor picks up this burning, disgusting man, and we're like,
so that's his new baby. Yeah.
And then we also see this scooping of these children.
Yeah.
Really
with highlight scoops, like it's.
Yes, it's highlight.
Those are meant for flinging things across the playground.
And she's like, "Ooh, bah," and it kills me. I don't want that. I don't know where that scoop goes. It's a little big. I really don't like that. And she's all like, "I'm happy about this." Ooh, bah. And then she, of course, sees the babies, Luke, Leia. At the same time, Anakin's getting physically transformed into Vader. The mask comes down over his face. It clicks, and you hear him breathe for the first time as Vader. And then it cuts to Luke taking his first breath, which I feel is a very powerful moment, or is set up to be a powerful moment, whether or not the execution is strong enough. It's very, very, very interesting that he takes the breathing. It kind of hit me this time around.
Yeah, it works for me. I think that's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So they both breathe life for the first time. Then, of course...
Also, the fact that R2-D2 and C-3PO and Yoda and Obi-Wan are all present at the birth of Luke and Leia. We didn't... I guess we could have guessed maybe that Obi-Wan and Yoda would be there, but those Rosencrantz and Guildenstern droids.
Yeah. And do we have anything else to say about their birth before we talk further about the birth of Vader?
Well, I find I'm a little disturbed by the kind of vague reasoning for her death.
She lost
Yes.
the will to live, Marc-Anthony. She just lost the will to live.
She just doesn't give a shit anymore, you guys.
She just lost it. We don't understand it.
Yeah, medically, she's fine. But her apathy has overcome her healthiness.
Medically, she's fine.
I agree. I think that's part of the general situation of Padme as a character getting sold short in this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it adds a little more fuel to my fire that a lot of things in the prequels make sense if you accept that Padme is not that great of a person. She's...
Well, she dies anyway.
She dies. And then Vader is born.
And then Vader is born, and Vader is lifted up, and Vader asks, "Where's Padme?
Is she all right?"
Vernacular way. And he's told, "No, you killed her." At which point, what happens? Somebody tell me.
No!
Well, first, he breaks out of his shackle like Frankenstein.
Totally Frankenstein.
I mean, that whole scene is like very directly Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And
I mean, in not exactly shot for shot but it's there.
It's alive.
Yeah.
And he's born. That thing is born, and we see him on the bridge with the Emperor, looking out as they construct the Death Star.
Yeah, and Moff.
And Moff Tarkin.
Moff Tarkin, yes, Moff Tarkin. And at the same time, we see Beru and
Owen
staring out at the suns after the Organas have gotten Leia. So everybody's looking off into their various horizons, vantage points, before we go into... We're done.
Roll credit.
And I just gotta say that it must be really harsh living in the Tatooine desert because Owen and Beru, they're looking pretty foxy at the end there, and it's only 20 years later.
I know, and
they're not so foxy in A New Hope.
No, I mean she's really ages. I think
Yeah.
Well, Obi-Wan too. Everybody on Tatooine. Obi-Wan aged quite a bit in those 20 years too.
Jimmy Smith looks exactly the freaking same.
I think in the Vader suiting up scene, one thing that I always think when I see this is they got that suit together pretty fast. Did Palpatine just happen to have this suit ready to go in case anything happened?
He has a factory of them.
Like it? What?
He's just got, kind of a closet, opens it up, and there are various mechanical suits.
This would fit.
Which one did I make for this offspring that I created through manipulating?
Well, you're about a 42 large. Wouldn't it be great if the robot sleeper were to come out and start measuring him and fitting him for a suit?
Oh God!
You have to say, I want you to make a pair of pants for the Republic. No,
yeah. All right.
On which side do you dress, Lord Vader?
We'll take it in.
Can you do that for me, Noah, please?
What's that?
I want you to make a pair of pants. Can you do it for me?
Of course, I can make you some. And they'll be Empire wasted, though. That's the thing about them.
Oh my God.
And then and yes, one moment I don't know why nobody in the process of making this movie said you can't do that shouting no moment. You just can't. It doesn't. Everything was going so well. It was a beautiful, moving, very dark, scary, powerful sequence, and then you had to have him go no, and people are right.
Oh God, I'm so glad it happened the way it did. I love it. It's my favorite no of all time.
Defensible.
It's beautiful. I love the clunky way he bursts free, and then how he hobbles, and the no, and then the pan out with the no.
I know. Part of it is we've never heard Darth Vader use his voice as an emotional instrument. He doesn't yell. He doesn't scream. He orders people around, he's calmly threatening. It's part of. However, other than that, I do think it's kind of remarkable how when he first starts talking in his James Earl Jones voice, it's rather convincing that that's the voice coming out of this mask. It oddly sounds a little bit like Hayden Christensen still when he asks where Padme is. That works better than I think it had any.
Well,
right.
Like I said, it's vernacular when he says, "We're done, all right?" I mean, that's very Hayden Christensen.
Yeah. I'm sure it's deliberate. Like, you're not speaking with your full gravitas and authority quite yet. And he says, I felt her. She must be. It is a little more a less confident Vader voice, but that easily could have been the silly moment. As soon as he's got the mask on, he's got this totally different character voice, but it works pretty seamlessly.
Well,
so can we? I just want to comment on a nerdy story element here. That do you feel that this was just kind of what happened to Vader as a result of his choices, and Palpatine saw this as kind of being part of his plan he could play with? Or was it that it was a major part of the plan that Palpatine was like, oh shit, this kid is going to get more powerful than me. I better make sure that all his limbs get cut off and we put him in a robo suit and he can't really be a major threat to me.
I don't think the second one. And I don't think he's worried about him being more powerful than him, because I think he knows the secret to staying alive.
Okay.
And he's not gonna. I don't think that was part of the plan. I think part of the plan was having Anakin be his apprentice. Yes, but I don't think he planned for Anakin to get whether him to get hurt or not hurt. I don't think it was one way or the other. I think Anakin wasn't going to die.
Why do you think he tells him that? He says very specifically, "You killed Padme, not the Jedi killed her," or he could have put anything in Anakin's head about that.
I think the worst possible thing you could think is that you killed your loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just trying to mess up his heart, basically.
You never forgive yourself.
Yeah. And if he's so pained about thinking about what he's done, he's not going to think too clearly about the way he's been recently manipulated into.
And I must really be a bad person. I must be this Darth Vader. Like the person I love, the only person I love in this universe, Pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I've got a few trivia questions here for you.
All right, I've got to take a powder.
Okay, go powder.
You guys enjoy yourselves.
Okay. Well, while that powdering's happening, actually, before we get to the trivia, and we'll get Amanda's response when she gets back. But Noah, since Revenge of the Sith is PG-13.
Oh yes.
This means that it you could use the word fuck in there once without changing its rating.
Yeah.
And many people have commented on what they think where they would use that. Sparingly use that one fuck. Where do you have a place that you think it would be best served, or a few places that?
It's a brilliant question. I had never considered this until you mentioned it earlier today. The first thing that popped into my head when I started pondering this for the first time was in that climactic speech, if Obi-Wan had said, "You were the chosen one! Fuck!"
Yes. Yeah, that way. And I mean, it's perfectly natural, I think, for Anakin to use it in one of those scenes too.
Yeah.
Fuck you, I hate you, that kind of thing. I wouldn't mind the bit where Padme confronts him on Mustafar saying, Kenobi said you fucking killed younglings. Like that would work too. And it's really hard not to want to give Samuel L. Jackson a shot at using the fuck in a Star Wars movie.
Sure.
He's the fucking traitor. That would work.
I think when Yoda drops his cane,
Fuck.
Or what about Yoda in his duel with Palpatine? He could say, "Not if anything the fuck to say about it. I have."
Oddly, that makes the line so much less awkward.
It does.
It flows a lot better that way.
So
Hey,
you
does anybody say I have a bad feeling about this in episode 3?
Yes. Yes. Obi-Wan says it right before they go into the hangar at the very beginning.
No.
Yeah.
I also have some interesting things that I put together, and we won't get through all these, I don't think, tonight. But since we are wrapping up the prequel time, we just, the three of us put together some of our picks for the top, I don't know, kind of Oscars. So I'm just gonna go through this a little bit. Best actor, we all three had the same person, Ian McDermott.
Yeah. Well, since we all had the same one, my runner-up would be Ewan McGregor.
And mine too, yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Best actress, you both had the same thing.
Oh, did we? Pernilla August?
Yes.
She really does a lot with, 5 words, basically. She does a great job. And for those that may not know, Pernilla August played Shmi Skywalker, Anakin's mother on Tatooine.
It must be said, not a lot to choose from. And although the prequels are more woke than the original trilogy, it would not be until the sequel trilogy that the gender balance starts to look reasonable.
Yes, and that's why I left that answer blank.
Ooh, fair enough.
Protest.
Mm-hmm.
Most improved. Marc-Anthony, I enjoyed your answer to this question about Yoda because of the CGI puppet.
Yeah, I felt like before the Phantom Menace came out, I was really very vehemently I'm fine with them doing CGI, whatever they want, as long as there's no CGI Yoda. I want a puppet Yoda. I want Frank Oz as the puppeteer. That's how it has to be. And that puppet Yoda in the Phantom Menace is awful. It looks like he's made out of Cracker Jacks that someone spray painted green. He has no expression in his face. It's just embarrassing, and the complete opposite of the Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So
and they did a job with the CGI Yoda, not making him too expressive.
Exactly, it worked.
Puppet.
It worked pretty well. I was really impressed with I felt like it was able to take a lot of what Oz does with his voice and what he would do with physical puppetry. And I don't know how much he was involved in the mocap of that Yoda, but we do see a depth of expression in Yoda that we don't actually see in the puppet. So it uses what the CGI has to its advantage without overdoing it. I really liked Yoda in the sequels or prequels.
Noah, your most improved was Hans Christian Andersen in episode 3, and runner-up were Jar Jar Binks. Episode 3, I also said Mr. Anderson.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I almost said that.
And I think it's what we discussed, that the role became better for him.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a lot about creatures. We all agreed that the best minor villain was Grievous. The worst minor villain, Marc-Anthony, I don't know who yours is. Sand?
Oh, it gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere.
Ah!
Yeah.
You're an idiot. Okay. We all hated the droid factory. Now, let's... biggest casting mistake, Hayden Christensen, and Noah feels that Meryl Streep is too hammy as Sebulba.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, why did Sebulba have to burst out into song?
It's a stunt casting.
Why those heels?
I think she did a great job. I think she transformed herself.
I just don't. Yeah, I think she dragged down a franchise that she had no business being.
I didn't see Meryl Streep in that movie at all.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So these are some good questions. We had 2. Who would be your best friend? Marc-Anthony, Jar Jar.
Yeah.
Dexter Jetser. And who of the weirder Jawas.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I mean, what was that?
Who's Dexter Jetser?
That is the 4-armed diner owner that Kenobi visits to get the Camino information.
Dex.
That's someone I would hang out with.
Dex, okay.
And also Jawas, probably not all Jawas, but I think that there would be kind of some, slightly outcast Jawas that I would really get along with. And I'd be like, yeah, all right, they steal some of my electronics every now and then, but they also fix a fair amount of my stuff, and they're useful.
Do you think
they got pretty eyes?
Cool.
Would
the
you
Orthodox Jawas.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was asking, would you guys all hang out together, or would they be like separated friend silos?
No, I think like what do you mean, like me, Jar Jar, a Jawa, and
Dexter.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that because I mean Dexter in his diner does serve Jawa juice, and I don't know if that's made by or of Jawas.
Well, that would be something to consider. Yes. Noah's best friend would be Yoda.
Fair enough. Yeah.
My best friend, Obi-Wan. I think he'd be a very good best friend.
Yeah.
I bet he smells nice.
I bet he does smell nice. Who would be your worst enemy? And Marc-Anthony, you had you can answer for yourself.
Wait, okay. So I mean, this is stupid, but it's just like how sometimes you just have a kind of physiological response to someone that's not really based on anything useful or informative or thoughtful. It's just fuck that guy. And that's how I feel about Sandhill, the chairman of the banking clan. He's that the banking clan will fund your Simpson couch. I hate his fucking skinny face. I hate the way that he moves his hands. I hate his expressions. I hate his voice. I want to punch his nose inside out, but he doesn't have one.
The banking clan will sign your treaty.
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. Noah's worst enemy, Palpatine.
Yes, I was being a little obvious with those.
Amidala and I would hate each other. I mean, come on. We hate each other. Hate. Who would you ask to the prom? Marc-Anthony.
Bail Organa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just think he's fine. He is a fine ass Bail.
Yoda. You're saying you'd like to make Bail?
Yes, I would like to. I'd like to make out with Bail. I'd also like to take Yoda to prom. I mean, if nothing else, he can get down. I bet.
I bet he could. I bet he's
got some great moves.
Yeah.
And Owen Lars. Now I put Owen Lars because I figure that's probably if I was on Tatooine, who I would have taken to prom. And then, man, glad I dodged that bullet because we see what happens.
Yes. Well, Noah.
And you don't want to be making blue milk for that guy forever.
Oh my God, no, definitely not. Because you have to go,
Yeah.
So Noah's would ask that lady in the see-through pants in episode 2. He'd ask her to the prom.
The lady in the see-through pants?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Haven't you ever seen episode 2, Marc-Anthony?
I guess not. But maybe my eyes aren't as attracted to ladies in see-through pants as.
That's possible.
Go Google it. It's like every male on the whole planet is like, oh, and that woman in the see-through pants.
In the nightclub on Coruscant that Anakin pursues the bounty hunter into.
I can't believe you
the same place where Obi-Wan meets Sleazebago Death Sticks.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lady in the crowd, and she's just there's just something about her.
Is it Mon Mothma?
No, it's an extra. It's just a random character in one of the Mr. Plinkett reviews. She's pointed out.
Yes, she's also she walks in front of the camera to the bar, and she's got like see-through red pants on. So
I see.
I would ask Darth Maul to the prom. Very fitting with my high school career. I would have asked Darth Maul. He would have looked at Plus, I think he'd been fun. Would have scared him.
Yeah, I bet he would be a great prom date actually. And he's already got a crown, whether or not he's.
We would have left early, I think, to go smoke cigarettes somewhere in a diner. Mm-hmm. Who would you marry? Marc-Anthony.
So I just went with who I thought is the cutest, and that's Captain Antilles of the blockade runner that Bail Organa has.
So you would take Bail Organa to the prom, but you wouldn't marry Bail Organa.
No, because I know what's ahead for that guy. Maybe Captain Antilles has a little less drama in his life.
And Noah, who did you say you would marry?
The lady in the see-through pants and
Mary?
No, I said I would marry Amanda Sisk if I could choose anybody.
And I would marry 5 to 10 minor characters. With whom would you have a torrid affair? Let's start with Noah.
Well, I have two answers to this. I would like to have a torrid affair with Amanda Sisk and the lady in the see-through pants in episode 2. I think we could really make some magic happen.
Right. Marc-Anthony, torrid affair.
Like every 6th or 7th clone trooper I met. It would really just, depend on it would all come down to what their stupid little tag name they gave themselves was and how they decorated their helmet individually. That would make this one, slightly cuter than the rest of them, but they're all fine.
What
a little blurry, but this is the lady in the see-through pants in the nightclub in episode 2. Isn't she just, there's something about her.
Yeah, I can see why you'd want to marry that.
I can't explain it.
He doesn't want to marry her. He just wants to, have the milk for free.
Oh, okay.
I would have a torrid affair with Obi-Wan. It would be very complicated, but it would happen.
And he would do this to you.
He would what?
Amanda, I have got you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be so complicated. It would be really difficult, but we would have a torrid affair. And then a really good question I had, in 5 words or less, why does George Lucas keep remaking / changing these movies? And I'm going to let you guys answer. So, Marc-Anthony, why, in 5 words or less, does George Lucas keep remaking / changing these movies?
Why not?
Noah?
My answer to that was, what I did was I decided to just give the first 5 words of my answer.
The answer was, well, first of all, he.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he. Oh, I'm out of words.
And my answer is, he is scared of death.
Oh, Moonstruck. You've been watching Moonstruck.
Yes. Why do men chase other women? Why do men keep remaking their movies? They're scared of death.
They fear death.
Fear of death.
That's also why I make a sandwich every day. I'm afraid of death. Eating that keeps death further away.
That's why I make a sandwich with Amanda and the lady in the see-through. Never mind. Forget it.
Okay, well, before... go ahead.
The last question, which I think we've also already talked about. What is your most sincerely emotional moment? Is there anything besides Order 66? You were the chosen one. Into exile I must go. And this whole, 3 movie series. These,
Oh, in all 3, not just in this one.
In all 3.
I mean, I feel like in episode 2, Anakin seeing his mom again was, regardless of his performance, which actually wasn't terrible in that scene, but it was a moving scene.
Noah, do you have anything else? Any other ones?
I would. The ones that I would put at the top of my list are the ones from episode 3 we've already discussed. But I was just reminded of the moment in episode 1 when Anakin, as a young boy, has that moment of hesitation before leaving his mother. You remember, he turns around and he looks at her. He starts to go back. That's an emotional moment. Very often they are unspoken moments.
And we've come to the end of the 3 official prequels.
The prequel trilogy.
The prequel trilogy. After this, we'll move on to the next 3.
So next is Solo, which is your personal favorite, right, Sisk?
It's the only Star Wars movie or Star Wars story that I've seen once, and that's it.
Okay. Well, our very next episode, though, which will be on July 7th, is a theme episode. May the Schwartz be with you, Spaceballs and Other Spoofs. Looking forward to that one a great deal. And then it's on July 21st, our July 21st episode. We will discuss Solo, a Star Wars story, because it is the one that, of the canonical films, it's the one that comes after episode 3. Yeah. Chronologically speaking.
And that, my friends, is the prequels. Anybody got anything else to say?
I just wanted to add. When I was kind of looking for things to discuss this week, I found another lunatic fan theory.
Okay.
I don't know if I necessarily want to say lunatic, but the minutia with which people will address these things is fascinating. So I guess if you watch, and I tried watching it to see how well I could see this, but the Squid Lake scene in Revenge of the Sith, apparently as Palpatine is mentioning Darth Plagueis the Wise, and how he was able to, control the Force to create and revive life. People are saying that the image of Darth Plagueis appears in the bubbles on the stage and does a little pointing of light energy directly at Anakin.
Ooh.
Now, watching it, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing anything that looks too clear. I've seen a few, slowed down videos and stuff, and it really just looks like a bunch of ripples to me. I can kind of see what might be a little energy thing going towards Anakin, but I don't really see a figure or a face that looks like Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Does it sound like they're saying they're in our house now? Or is it our house now?
Well, actually, the notion of an inhabiting spirit, this scene between Palpatine and Anakin at the ballet that's a key scene in the entire series. That's in episode 3. That I think we discussed it a little bit in a previous episode. That's quite a scene and a beautifully delivered speech from Ian McDiarmid, and it's nicely ambiguous. It's not over-explained, but in that Darth Plagueis story, we can kind of sense that there's some origin story there for Palpatine, and maybe for the entire Sith project. And as Marc-Anthony was mentioning in our last episode, it's possible that Plagueis story will be drawn on for the resolution in episode 9.
It's possible. I mean, it's hard to see it being handled terribly well if it is used in that way. But I wouldn't be surprised by anything, and especially if Abrams is saying that he really wants to try to tie lots of things together in this final installment. It could be done. It could happen. There could be and then I became Palpatine and I used his body to create Vader so that I could create Kylo Ren and have the hottest body to inhabit as my evil self. It could happen.
I think that was trademarked material.
You
probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So now that we know how it all ends, Marc-Anthony, we know how it all ends.
Yeah, we do.
I guess with that, we will sign off until our next episode of Faces of Stone.
Indeed.
Unless you have housekeeping items, Noah.
Well, I might mention that our complete schedule and episode guide is available on the internet at facesofstone.space. You can see all of our episodes thus far in our Star Wars series and our old Twin Peaks conversations, and see what we've got planned for the rest of this year, which will take us all the way to December 22nd and our final episode discussing the Rise of Skywalker. If you want to find us online, we're all over the web. It's easy to find us. Google our names. But just to give you something to hang on to in this precarious world, you can find us on Twitter, where Marc-Anthony is M_A_Macon. Amanda is president of Sisk. And I am Noah Diamond.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks again for...
Faces.
Yes, there you go. Talk, Marc-Anthony.
I can't. I can barely move my mouth.
Faces of Stone.
Get home safe, folks.